Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Employable Me panel at Join Conference. It's great to see so many people here today, and I hope that by the end of the panel that you're going to be entertained and educated. My name is Greg David, and I'm the Communications Specialist at Accessible Media. And just to give you a heads up that both seasons of Employable Me can be streamed on demand at ami.ca, that's our website, and also on our fully accessible AMI TV app. So just to give you a little bit of background on Employable Me, it's produced by Thomas Howe and Associates, and it's a 6-part documentary series that features Canadian job seekers who are determined to show that having a physical disability or neurological condition shouldn't make them unemployable. On today's panel, I'm pleased to welcome Season 2 job seeker Lucia. Job seeker Jessica. Jessica's mother, Dorlean. And Jonathan Alderson, who's the founder and director of the Integrative Multi-Treatment Intervention Program for Autism. And Jonathan was featured in several episodes of Employable Me. Now I'm going to be leading a short discussion with the group, followed by some time at the end for any questions in the audience. But before we begin our discussion, let's take a look at a trailer for Season 2.
Meet 12 remarkable job seekers.
I've never had a job before.
They're struggling to get a foot in the door.
I've sent out hundreds of applications.
But with determination and the help of top experts,
he has a lot of strengths I don't even think he recognizes.
they'll uncover their hidden talents and prove to employers how their unique abilities could actually be history. I'd like to offer you a position. Employable Me, streaming now at AMI.ca and on the AMI TV app.
So, Lucia, I want to start with you. Prior to participating in Employable Me, what was the biggest challenge came to you when it came to finding employment?
I find it was sometimes difficult to be taken seriously in my position. I found that I would do really well in the interview and they would kind of have this idea of me, and then when my disability kind of became more visible throughout my first week or so, I could see that like they weren't going to put me in the positions that they would said they were, and yeah.
So just for the folks that are here that don't know, you had Tourette's.
I have Tourette's syndrome, yes.
Yeah. So so was that the major barrier that you had when it was trying to find a job? Was that you would do a good job in the interview, or you would go in and things wouldn't work out? Was it just because there was this thinking behind the employer that, oh, we hired this woman or we interviewed this woman and she isn't what we expected?
It wasn't only that. Sometimes I found that even if I would do, I feel that I would do as good a job as somebody else.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be taken as seriously as the other person just because I have this disability, you know?
So, Jonathan, you were just nodding your head. I mean, obviously, working with folks on the autistic spectrum, this is something that you deal with all the time, this thinking that someone isn't going to measure up to somebody else when they come in for an interview, right?
Yeah, and during the production of the show, I was working with a young man, and his question to me was, how much should I tell an employer about my disability? And so we had a really interesting conversation about, is there too much information you could tell someone about yourself so that maybe they wouldn't employ you, but you want just enough information so that they understand that you might have some special needs, some accommodations necessary. And that was really a process to discuss. And I would say two things. One was there's obviously a comfort you have to find within yourself about how do you feel about yourself? and your abilities and your disabilities. So that was a conversation we had that was really important. As he became a bit more comfortable with his unique talents and his challenges, then he was able to have that conversation. But I think the very first thing was to be honest, I think is really important. You wouldn't want to work in a space where they don't know who you are and they kind of discover that on day 2 or week 2, and all of a sudden they don't want you working there. It's better to be upfront.
Which leads into an interesting thought. If you're in an interview, there are certain questions that an employer can't ask you. There are some personal things that they can't ask, like, you know, marital status and things like that. So where do you think, Jonathan, it fits? Should somebody coming in for an interview, should Lucia or Jessica, you know, talk about whatever their special needs are or that they're going to need from the employer, or should they hold back? What do you think?
Well, again, the answer I think is yes, to be upfront.
Yeah.
I think that there's a difference between talking about my special needs and disabilities and talking about accommodations, modifications, and things. So I don't have to necessarily, I don't feel I have to explain to you my diagnosis or explain to you the sort of the neurology of what's going on. But I may need to say, hey, I'm going to need an office where the radio isn't on all the time, as an example, a really specific thing. And to have that conversation with an employer, I think you'd be surprised. Many employers are open to that. More and more employers are understanding the idea of accommodation, the idea of modifications, as long as it's not disrupting, let's say, the manufacturing of something we're making.
Right. So, Lucia, by the end of the your episode of Employable Me, you got a job at, I want to get it right, at Lush Fresh Handmade Cosmetics.
Yes, yes.
So what impressed you about Lush? You said a few things on the show, but what impressed you about the company?
There were actually a few things that impressed me. I was actually surprised because going into, I had never been in like a factory type setting. So I tried to have like high hopes, but I was not used to that kind of like setting. But then when I walked in, like just the ambience, like everybody had this really like good attitude. And when I started, like went throughout my day, I actually learned that the company is really involved in like charity work.
Right.
And usually when you think of like a company, maybe like good, the word like good necessarily doesn't spring to mind, but they're like a good company and they care a lot about like charity work and helping others. And you can tell like when you walk in, like they, like even for me, I get stared at a lot, like places I go because of my tics, my Tourette's. But like even there, when I will walk in, like people won't be like staring me down. They'll just kind of smile and be like, hey, like have a good day. Like it's very, it's a very welcoming atmosphere. Yeah.
And I believe that you were saying before that because of that welcoming atmosphere, you don't have the tics. You're much more comfortable, right?
Yeah, actually, when I started at Lush Cosmetics, I was only able to do about 5 to 6 hour shifts because I tend to start getting stressed out and nervous after a while. But a couple weeks into it, I was already like so comfortable in the job and just like so happy where I was that like my tics were so much like less prominent. Yeah. And I was able to do 8 hour shifts. I've done weeks where every day I'm coming in and doing 8 hour shifts every day because I'm so comfortable and it's such a good atmosphere, and I feel that like my disability just gets like less and less prominent like the more comfortable I get. And
so what accommodations did Lush give you to make sure that you were comfortable in the work environment?
They've been so amazing. Like I feel almost anything that I come to them and I say, hey, listen, I'm having trouble with this because, you know, like my disability, or this is harder for me, right away they will put me on a different job. Or, you know, if I tell them like I'm kind of like, sometimes I have certain tics where like maybe I'll like start hurting myself after a while. If I'm doing it too often, I'll tell them, hey, you know, I need to sit for a second while I do this one. Oh, sit like as long as you need, you know, like sit all day if you need to, just like they'll do whatever like I need to accommodate me if they need to put me on a new job. They're very like aware that like, you know, people can't sometimes do the same thing for 3 hours. Right. Or, you know, they're very accommodating. Yeah.
So last question for you specifically, where do you stand? Obviously with the TV show, Lush knew that you had Tourette's going in, but where do you stand? Do you feel as though a job seeker should talk about their specific needs in an interview?
Yeah, I think that they should, but I also know that a lot of people have like a lot of anxiety,
Sure.
and it's very difficult for
Yep.
them, or they may be extremely shy, and
Yep.
it's very difficult for them to say like, hey, this is what I have,
Yeah.
or whatever. So I think it's good. It's definitely good if you have the confidence to say something. You should definitely say something. I feel in Lush, what they do a lot is sometimes they'll come and like ask you if they see that there's something's up.
Yep.
And I think that's really great too, because some people, even if they are struggling, don't have like the confidence to go and say, hey, I'm struggling. So it's good that to have a little bit of communication from both ends.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Now, Jonathan, you'd already spoken about your experience during the show, and one of the job seekers that you worked with was Rick, and one of his strengths was his incredible focus. Put him to a task, and he was very detail oriented. So it really is, in a lot of cases, with the Canadians that you work with, finding it's very much finding the perfect job, or taking advantage of their skill set, right?
Yeah, and you would say this to anyone in this room looking for a job: lead with your skills, lead with your strengths. And so I find it interesting, here we are talking about disabilities, and the question, should you tell them about your disability or not? Good question. But how about your strengths?
Yeah.
And really, really leading with that. And by the way, if you're coaching someone with a disability looking for a job, help them to recognize their skills and their strengths, and help them to have confidence about those skills and strengths, because I think many people might not even recognize that in themselves or feel confident, because they maybe have spent many years being, maybe put down or not included. So part of the process, I think, of hiring for anyone is lead with your strengths. Know your strengths, lead with them, feel good about talking about your strengths. Of course they have strengths.
Speaking of strengths, Jessica, your strength, fashion, clothing, shopping, all things that you discussed in your episode of Employable Me. And you work at Malabar Limited, which is a costume rental, and they also make costumes as well. So the perfect job for you, right?
Yes, it is. Actually, it's amazing. I love it there.
What's your favorite part about working at Malabar?
Well, I have two favorite things
Okay.
that I love there. So I love working with my coworkers, Karen, Kelsey, Aubrey, and Sarah. They're amazing. We laugh a lot, and they're really kind to me. And then the second thing that is favorite, the costumes there, yeah. So there's a lot of costumes there. Wherever I look, anywhere, there's always costumes there. So there's accessories, hats, dresses, yeah.
So what are your responsibilities at Malabar? What are some of the things that you do when you're working for that company?
Well, first I clock in, right?
Yeah.
Then I go right to the seamstresses area to see if there's any costumes that need to be restocked on the main floor. If there is, I take it down. If there is not, I just go down with no costume. But then after that, I do the laundry, which laundry at Malabar is restocking hats, belts. They also have an armor room. And then when I go back up, I check to see if the fitting rooms are cleaned.
And how many shifts a week do you work? Because I know that you go to school as well.
Yeah.
How many shifts of work a week do you work at Malabar?
I only work one day a week,
Yeah.
which is Friday, and it's for 10 to 1.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So a very important question. When you got your first paycheck from Malabar, what did you buy? Did you buy clothing? Did you buy makeup? What did you do?
I did not spend a dime from a paycheck because I'm saving my money to celebrate my 21st birthday with my girlfriend in Vegas.
You are way more responsible than I am. Now, Dorlean, as Jessica's mother, you always want what's best for her. So what were your expectations for Jessica's job search before Employable Me?
Well, Jessica's an amazing young woman, and she is very independent. She has volunteered for a number of organizations, the Down Syndrome Association of Toronto, Young People's Theatre, her preschool, and she's done a number of public service announcements for the Canadian Down Syndrome Society, which are on YouTube. So we always thought that that would really be the stream that she would be going into, and really weren't even considering that she could actually get a job. And when Employable Me came along, it was just like this gift from God. For them to find what she's passionate about and find a job. For her to go to Malabar, it's like going to a candy store. Everywhere you look, it's beauty. And she just loves the people there. And then for them to help make her art, which she's so passionate about, into a greeting card business. And so this is her poster, Captain Canada. And this is a sample of her Santa Claus and her snowman. So it's a line of 6 Christmas holiday themed cards. And they connected her with Kid Icarus in Kensington Market, and that's where you can purchase them. And before Employable Me, this would not have happened for Jessica, unless maybe in the future some miracle would have came along. But truly, without Employable Me, I can't see that these opportunities would have been presented to Jessica.
And now the sky's the limit.
It's truly remarkable.
Yeah.
And Malabar has mentioned to them when Jessica's going to Humber College in September for their CIC program. And when she's completed that, if she would like a full-time job at Malabar, it's been offered to her.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Jonathan, volunteering, is that also a great way for somebody to get experience and figure out whether the workplace is going to work for them? I mean, it's a great thing to say, listen, I'd really like a job, but I feel like volunteering is really a way of finding out what the best job or job stream might be for someone.
Yeah, I would qualify that a bit. I would say, again, like anybody in the room, getting some volunteer experience is good for your resume. I would say to be careful about going to a company and saying, I'll volunteer for you, because I want to make it clear, I'm looking for employment. I'm looking for paid employment that's equal. One thing I think you could do is to do a trial period, though. So you might say to an employer, hey, listen, I'm not sure if this is going to work out for you. I'm not sure if it's going to work out for me. How about we do a trial period for 2 months, during which, by the way, I would get paid, and during which I would get some training. And then we'll sit down on this date and we'll decide if this feels really good for us, and we'll continue. Because it gives sort of an exit for both parties.
Right.
The man that you mentioned, the young man, Rick, who I worked with, he had some anxiety, some social anxiety from his autism. And as much as he wanted a job, he would say to me, Jonathan, what if this doesn't work out? What am I going to do? And he was a bit sort of stuck in starting, because he didn't want to be stuck in the job. And so that idea of saying to the potential employer, how about we do a trial, actually for him was a release valve. It allowed him to be able to go to the interview and really comfortably be there and really comfortably say, I'd like to try this out. I think that's different, though, than volunteering.
Right,
So,
right. Dorlean, what advice do you have for employers that are in the room? It's all great, the fact that Employable Me has helped all the job seekers in Season 1 and Season 2, but what would you say to employers that maybe don't have Employable Me? What are some practices that you think that they could be observing?
Well, definitely coming to a job fair like this to see who's looking for a job. I know Jessica has been to a number of the fairs and has the information of companies that are willing and open to Jessica as a potential employee. So definitely for employers to come here and see who is available, because without coming to a job fair, I'm not sure how else they would find someone, like Jessica and Lucia, because just going online and putting your resume in, it doesn't show the spectacular person that's standing in front of you. And I think they both sell themselves.
Yeah.
Can I just obviously add, there's organizations like Specialistern, who's here. Awesome, shout out to Specialistern. And Ready, Willing, and Able. There are organizations that are doing this amazing work. They are connecting with people with disabilities and special needs, giving them training, connecting them to employers, helping to train employers as well. Sort of that whole life cycle, if you will, of employment and training. And that's why it's awesome that this event is taking place. But to direct people with disabilities and special needs to those organizations who specialize, in that is really the way to go.
We've got time before we wrap up for questions from the audience. If anybody has a question, you can maybe raise your hand. Nobody has a question? Okay. Yes, sir, down here in the front. Oh, they're going to get a microphone, so I get to...
Quick. First of all, kudos. Wow, you folks are wonderful. And especially amazing that your art's being recognized and sold. I think that is, there's, I'm sure, a ton of artists in this room who would love to have their work sold. So many congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, my question is this, it's to the whole panel. As a community and as a nation, do you perceive that we are getting better at this? Like over the last, say, 5-10 years or whatever, have you seen the needle move on this stuff? Or not? And I'm positive or negative, I'd love to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say I definitely have seen a big change, like even from when I started employment when I was about 18 or 19 years old in my first job to now, especially going into a company like Lush Cosmetics. Like, I have seen a huge difference in the way that disabilities and mental disabilities are being approached, and it's actually really nice to see, because it has surprised me so much how much more aware in this company I have seen they are of, trying to accommodate people who might just have different routines and do things differently, and they understand that, and they kind of try to work with you and see what is best for both of you, and I definitely see a huge change, and it's really nice.
And I just look at Kid Icarus, Jessica having a disability or no disability, they treated her with respect, kindness, and very professional, and it was her art, and if the color wasn't right, they listened to her. So it was very positive. And at Malabar, Karen, who is her boss, she worked with special needs people for 20 years as an educator, and she feels it's a responsibility for everybody to help anyone with special needs and that needs additional help. So it's been very, very positive.
And I will just add, you're asking, are times changing? This show, Employable Me, is a massive game changer. You don't see a lot of disability on TV that much. And so Tom, Howe, and his crew who have taken this on, the production, AMI, massively pushing the envelope, right? And then getting this onto TVO as well. But I would say things are really changing in that direction. Lots of education still to do, especially on the employer side. So if you're here and you work for a company, or you know a company who isn't yet open to even interviewing, just starting with interviewing people with special needs, giving people that chance, please go and say to the employer, hey, let's wake up and reach out to these organizations like Specialistern and Ready, Willing, and Able, and give people an opportunity just for an interview?
We only have a couple of minutes left before the next session comes up, but I wanted to announce that season 3 of Employable Me is casting now, and Thomas Howe is here from Thomas Howe and Associates. Tom, if you just want to stand up. So if you're an employer and have any questions about season 3 of Employable Me, if you're a job seeker that's interested in participating, you can speak to Tom after the session. And of course, everyone on the panel is going to be available for a few minutes if you have any further questions for them. I want to thank everybody for taking the time today. It's been great talking to you.
Welcome.
And thanks everybody who participated here today. Thank you.